of the best music in the country has been produced right here in Kansas.
I love my job.
It's hard to believe that through this doorway and up this flight of well-worn stairs lies one of the best recording studios in the country.
Business has exploded beyond my wildest expectations.
Carter Green is one of the hottest recording engineers around.
At any given time, I have 600 different switches I have to keep track of on a project. You figure 40 tracks, maybe 40 to 50 tracks, and each track has its own equalization, its own compression. I have to make sure that every sound is the best it can be before we can even go into final mix.
Carter has worked on projects for
The Real World, on All My Children, on Smallville, on one of our mixes appear on ABC's What About Brian?
his latest project is scoring a movie called Gracie Rose.
Really excited about that because even as a kid, I've always wanted to score a movie.
Carter says his earliest memory of writing music was when he was 8.
My folks had a tiny little chord organ, and I remember hitting the key and hearing a major triad and thinking, how is that different from a minor triad, and working out the chords. So I was actually learning music theory on my own before I ever took a class.
So how did this music prodigy end up here in Wellington? Didn't exactly take a direct path. After he graduated from high school, he left Wellington to attend the University of Chicago, where he planned to become a chemical engineer.
After 2 years of doing chemistry, I decided that I would rather be an excellent musician and composer than a mediocre chemist. So I switched my major to music, followed my heart, and haven't looked back since.
Still, the road to success wasn't always easy.
But I think there's also a downside because you have to overcome some obstacles.
Yes, you do.
Was your pathway paved?
No. I come from a very hard-working blue-collar family.
And it took a lot of trial and error, too.
My first recordings sounded awful. You learn so much with each passing project. You know, as with any of the arts, you have to go through your awkward phase. Don't pass up any opportunity. Take everything that comes at you, and throw yourself into it. Give it. If it means staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning working on a mix, that's what you have to do sometimes. If it means asking people, talking to people that are better than you, put down your ego, ask the people who know, ask the people who have been doing it for years. That's how I learned.
Learn to make music like this. Despite having the talent to write music like this, his studio still didn't take off overnight.
I ran the studio out of my home for the first 5 years.
Until it took hold, Carter did anything and everything he had to make ends meet. He worked in accounting, was a director of music for the First United Methodist Church, taught music appreciation at the Cowley County Community College Extension Office, and he worked as the executive director of Wellington's Chamber of Commerce.
I was working 4 jobs. Too much for anyone. It came a point where I was working at the Chamber of Commerce all day, recording at the studio out of my home all night, and at some point I had to say to myself, something's got to give.
As soon as he was able to make his recording studio into a full-time business.
In 2003, we bought this building and renovated it. The building is 100 years old. It was original Bell Telephone switchboard station, actually.
Carter says his goal was to preserve the architecture, yet convert it into a modern recording studio.
To do that, I enlisted the help of Gavin Haverstick, acoustic engineer out of New York City. Our control room now is THX approved. We're capable of doing Dolby 5.1 surround sound mixes for video, audio, music, any aspect of music production or audio production.
Making more than 200 records over the past 12 years has taught him a lot. Carter says he's had the chance to work alongside some pretty amazing people.
Working in LA, being able to work alongside some fantastic engineers such as Megan Gohill at Hollywood Recording Studio, Chris Solomon at Future Disc Mastering, working with guys that have worked on projects like Fleetwood Mac, Sheryl Crow, Tom Petty. I learned so much from these guys. So then I bring that knowledge back here and apply it to the work that I do here.
Although he's worked on some pretty big projects,
I was fortunate enough to mix projects for Randy Gus of Toad the Wet Sprocket, a band I loved when I was in high school. Was able to talk to Randy, and he was very pleased with the job I did. I was able to mix a project for Jason Orm, was Alanis Morissette's guitar player.
Carter works with some rising stars too, like Aaron Sidwell. So how does he get this full orchestra sound in a studio this size? Sampling software.
We can do orchestrations with violins, cellos, percussion, choirs, things that were unheard of even 3 years ago. You can literally have, at the touch of a button, a live cellist playing an emotional passage that you perform yourself on the keyboard.
If the software doesn't have a certain sound you want, Carter can create that too. He plays 26 different instruments, from electric guitar to the Chinese erhu.
How did you learn all of those?
Most of the instruments that I play, I taught myself. To bring a new sound to pop, rock, what have you. There are a lot of sounds that you can't get out of a synthesizer, that can only be reproduced in the physical world. When a theme pops into my head, I generally hear the entire orchestration all at once.
Carter says the key to his success has been that he never stops learning.
My continuing education, is provided by, I read a lot of industry publications, a lot of trade magazines, and also by physically doing it. But really, you hear this in almost every profession, that experience is the best teacher. I've been doing recordings for 11, 12 years now, and still learning, always learning.
And doing everything he can to become the best.
Just the word impossible or can't just doesn't exist in my vocabulary.
Unless it comes to a fight, that is. Who would have thought mixing music could actually be dangerous?
The worst thing that ever happened to me in this job was I got challenged to a fist fight by an accordion player.